Hello everyone, your intellectual movie guru here, and welcome to another movie review. And I've been teasing about it for a good while, so we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, back in the past. It is Dracula 1931, starring Bela Lugosi. This was distributed by Universal Pictures and produced by Todd Browning. What really is there to say about Dracula 1931 that hasn't been talked about on numerous movie reviews all over this world that we call the internet? Well, a lot's been said, to be honest. For one, this is starring Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi was in a lot of stuff around this year. Quite recently, if you remember, I did a Realm of Flicks reaction to White Zombie, which is one of my other favorite Bela Lugosi films. But, you know, when it comes to Bela Lugosi and Dracula itself, can you believe that it's not public domain? I mean, it's one of those few vampire-type movies that are literally still under copyright still to this day. Also, if it wasn't for Dracula 1931, we wouldn't have Nosferatu. As I've talked about in the past, is that Nosferatu is basically a non-copyrighted version of Dracula 1931, except there was some minor changes and big changes to make it its own movie as well. But technically, Nosferatu is a non-copyrighted public domain Dracula movie. If you don't believe me, go look it up yourself, or you can just take my word for it. But enough, of all these random little facts here and there. Why don't we get straight into the deep details?
Struggling to reach an end before sundown, a stagecoach of weary travelers rocks back and forth violently, as if mere inanimate cargo. At the lodging, one of the passengers, businessman Mr. Renfield, insists upon going ahead to Transylvania's Castle Dracula to meet the Count himself, but the townsfolk warn him of the dangers of the dark and the legend of the vampire and his wives who inhabit the cursed estate. Before his hasty departure, undeterred Renfield is given a crucifix for protection, but no one believes he'll survive the night. In one of the most iconic sequences, a collection of crypts pop open, with spiderly fingers plucking at the perimeters, unveiling Count Dracula and his bloodthirsty brides rising from their slumber. It's a perfectly horrific introduction to one of cinema's most influential personas, and sure enough, the unwitting Renfield is drawn into the realm of that most famous neck-biter, oblivious to the uninviting nature of the domain and ignorant of the hazards of accidentally spilling a drop of blood in Dracula's presence. I bid you welcome. Thanks to Renfield's paperwork, Dracula heads to England aboard the Vesta, bringing with him coffins and his faithful servants. Expectedly, the crew doesn't make it. Their gruesome deaths are blamed on the terrible storm. But once corpses start to appear, with signature holes in their throats where blood had been drained, it would seem that a powerful vampire is at work, and young women Lucy and Mina become targets of Dracula's thirst when he discovers a connection to Dr. Seward's sanitarium, where his slave Renfield has been detained. Despite the collection of esteemed scientists researching Renfield's condition, the hypothesis of Nosferatu implications put forth by Professor Van Helsing proves to be a readily accepted theory, and he's careful to explain the details and the rules of vampire existence and destruction. To some people, this movie would be more fantasy than horror, though it excels in crafting a forbidden atmosphere. It's actually rather awe-inspiring that this classic universal monster would become so influential, considering the underdeveloped structuring, moments of ineffective suspense, and a general deficiency in filmic polish. Clearly, Lugosi's definitive performance is to be thanked for the picture's prominence, endurance, and critical and commercial successes.
So what would I rate Dracula 1931? Well, first off, I want to bring something to date that I didn't mention before was that Bela Lugosi was the first person considered for the role of Frankenstein's monster. And, you know, when it came to Bela Lugosi, Dracula was a huge hit when it literally came out, and Lugosi became a massive star for his performance. So, you know, Universal thought that they should ride that hot hand and have Lugosi play the key role in, you know, other monster movies in the future. That's why there was a lot of Bela Lugosi movies that came out literally after Dracula. Not literally like in the same year, but like there's just a lot of movies that came out when it came to him. And I wanted to put that in effect when it comes to my review, because here's the thing. Dracula 1931 is a very important movie to me. It was one of my first horror movies I ever watched as a kid, and how can I put it? It holds a special place in my heart. While most people would probably put a lot of downgrades on Dracula 1931 because of, you know, the budget versus, you know, the acting for this scene, the acting of that scene, some of the cuts from one scene to another, things of that nature, I'm probably going to be one of the few people that would actually give this a 10 out of 10. And I'm going to explain why. For one, Bela Lugosi is in my top 10 favorite actors of all time. He's one of those actors where it's not just what comes out of his mouth that matters. It's also the fact that he gives the best body language, in my opinion. And there's something about Bela Lugosi's eyes that really put that suspense in not just anything he says, but anything he does. And I've always thought that was pretty damn cool. And like I said, if it wasn't for Dracula 1931, I wouldn't have gotten into horror movies. I wouldn't have gotten into movies themselves that had a darker turn. Dracula 1931 is one of the few important movies of my life. Of course, I've talked about in the past, you know, what other movies put a big impact on my life, and this is one of them. I couldn't do a Realm of Flicks reaction to this movie. I wish I could, but it's still to this day under copyright. I need to avoid a lot of that stuff. But Bela Lugosi's Dracula 1931 is a movie I talk about all the time in conversations. I still watch it ritually at least once a year. Dracula 1931 was one of the few old school horror movies that I got my brother into when he was alive. It was a very important movie, period, in my life, because like I said, not only is it a great conversational piece when talking about movies in terms of the horror genre, it's also very important even in history of this movie. We wouldn't have vampiric films to this day. We wouldn't have movies based around Vlad Tepes. We wouldn't have anything from Bram Stoker. You know, Bram Stoker's Dracula, man. Like, the history is there, you know. But, yeah, you know, 10 out of 10. I'm going to stick to it to the rest of my life. You know, like I said, it is a bit of favoritism because I love Bela Lugosi films. But I love the plot. I love the acting. You know, 10 out of 10. I'm sticking to it. That's that. So, as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this movie review. Let me know in the comments down below if you have a favorite vampire film. Did you watch Bela Lugosi's Dracula 1931 ever in your life? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. But as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm your intellectual movie guru, Onyx, and I will see you next time.